about how you are using the critical learning concepts in the Verndale School in the math department.
Well, I think about 3-4 years ago, we
Like 2.
2 years ago. Okay.
Well, I wouldn't have been here 4
Oh, you
years
wouldn't
ago.
have been here 4 years ago. Okay, we mapped 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, algebra nonlinear and geometry, and just looked at kind of scope and sequence of the whole year. We like determined how many units, and I think we even had it down to 9 or 10 then. And that was before,
That was about 10.
yeah, before COVID, and where we were really focused on what is the most critical thing that students need to learn. And when we hit that point, we said, okay, let's see if we can get it to 9 or 10, because we thought 9 months in the school year, that kind of gives us a month per critical learning concept so that we have adequate time to address all of the concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got new curriculum in the midst of that.
Yep. So then now we're kind of taking what we had, like what we started 2 years ago. We got a new curriculum, so now we have to, whether we reordering it or, and in the midst of that, we, like you said, we identified what these critical learning concepts are. So if you have 9 or 10 or 8 or, give or take, we're kind of just taking what we already did, kind of maybe informally a couple of years ago, and restructuring it so that it's hopefully in the future, like, yeah, we're gonna have to keep, repolishing it, rechanging it, but hopefully it's like it's not a finished product, but it's a very solid foundation so we can easily change it as we go as needed.
Yeah, and so we're going in and writing proficiency scales for each of those 9 or 10 concepts. We're talking to each other, like I had a conversation with Mr. Reber about which things should be in nonlinear, which should be in Algebra 2, and even at one of our last faculty days, we talked about, this fits better here, so we're tweaking that a little bit, and he said, you want to trade this one for that one because it's in our new curriculum in a different place. And I find with new curriculum, it's your resource, so it's the standards that are driving the critical learning concepts, and that's what drives what units we're going to do. But if you don't do them in the order that you have them in your resource, you might get to like module 10 and they expect that you already know some previous material. So that's what's making us have to switch things up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've got it mapped down to about 9 for each one, and we know what 7th graders should know, what 8th graders should know coming out. What do we cover in nonlinear? We communicate, if there's any gaps, like with COVID and things, we didn't quite get through everything. So then what do you have in Algebra 2? I think the most challenging one is geometry, because, even well before this, we decided linear would be like the first half of the Algebra 1 book and nonlinear would be the second half, so that it was attainable and we could actually spend the time on it.
Mm-hmm.
And with Algebra 2, we've kind of done that as well, because we took out the trig and probability and stats and made that into a new class as of this year, because we recognized that we couldn't get through all of those things and do them well. And so we separated that out. It's an important part of the standards, but that gives another class for students to take as a senior.
Mm-hmm.
And geometry is the only one that I really need to fine tune it better, because there's a lot of vocabulary there. It's like a full book that we haven't split at all.
Yep. And I mean, it'll be, because like last year's was the year we identified the critical learning concepts,
Mm-hmm.
right? So really last year and this year, like, are the first years that like 7th graders, these are what they need to know. So it'll probably be a few years before we're like finding out, like, hopefully like those learning gaps are getting filled, and by the time they get to Algebra 2, they should know everything from 7th, 8th, 9th geometry.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, not that we're teaching that much different stuff than we would have been before, but like we're really honing in on these 9 things now.
Yep.
So
Yep.
hopefully.
And I feel like it's given me more time, like in nonlinear with our new curriculum. There's some really good like area and volume problems in the middle of nonlinear
Mm-hmm.
that I spend some time talking about, because I have a little bit more time to visit some of those area and volume things along with our polynomial expressions. And that I think will support what we're doing in geometry too.
Yep.
So how often do you guys get to meet as a department where it's the math department talking about the critical learning concepts and how you might map that out, looking for those gaps and overlaps and omissions in your instruction?
It's once every 2 months now, right?
Yeah, it has been like on our late starts, they have given us like 1 hour for PLC, 1 hour for department time. And then I think now they're trying to, because an hour is not much time to really settle in, so they're trying to give us 2 hours every other month. And I think as a department, we do a really nice job of just meeting informally quite
Yep.
often. Like we're both working on some geometry stuff right now. Mr. Reaver and I have conversations all the time.
He's in my PLC, so we have conversations too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep, so it just becomes kind of a normal part of our day.
Good deal.